Thanks a lot, Bart. Good morning, everybody. Is that bonjour? Calimero, I remember. Goedemorgen. Good to have you here. It's nice to give a little talk about what we are doing in the city of Rotterdam. Share some of our ideas. I'll look to you also to reflect upon them, see whether you can match them to the ideas and thoughts and work in the ESPRESSO project. We are quite curious and we're also quite excited because some of the things that we strive for are not so much important in a small city, but they're important on a global scale. And I hope you will find some of our ideas interesting and also the right ideas. Don't hesitate to give me any feedback. I will, however, because this is what I like best, is listening to myself. I will, however, talk for a bit, and then afterwards we'll have this discussion. There'll be plenty of room to ask questions, I think, and we can also continue our contacts and communications later on. So I understand the ESPRESSO webinars. We've had 2 webinars already, I think, and this is the 3rd one. I am currently a manager for GIS, Geo Information Systems, and consultancy, so it's Geo Consultancy in Rotterdam, and that's kind of a broad theme. So some of the things I'm working on together with my team is geospatial data. So we have approximately 10 or 15 geospatial data sets, and we take care of the procurement, their quality. We do lots of little GIS and also bigger questions, analysis, portals, dashboards, things like that. And also the latest years, my interest is going from 3D city models, very much into what I now call the GeoBIM environment. So maybe that's kind of interesting to see whether the classical Geo Information and geodesy world actually hits the building, construction, engineering world. Thinking about what to say today, I thought I kind of use this example quite often, and it's called Second Life. I'm not sure where everybody knows about it, but this was a big hype maybe approximately 5 years ago, or 6 or 7 years ago. And a big hype, actually cities our size in the Netherlands were already buying their slot. So they were actually buying virtual buildings. They didn't buy anything that's actually that you can touch. Really, it's only a digital object. And at the time I was always joking about it because it would be pretty stupid, I suppose, to pay for a virtual or digital object. But nowadays, I think I changed my mind, and I'm still kind of wondering whether we missed out on another opportunity to learn. So even though some of the ideas that I saw in this world seemed ridiculous, I suppose, I still think, and I'm starting to think, that we should actually try all of them, and try all of them at the same time as well, in order to have enough experiences to create some actual innovation. So actually, I decided I want to do everything. Of course, that's not possible. It's a nice, I suppose it's a nice starting point. Some of the things, issues we're working on a couple of years, you must be familiar with these. There's a collection of geodata which is so much cheaper than it was 5 or 10 years ago, and we have so much more data. The differences, if you look at 2016 and 2006, for example, the differences are ridiculous. We're now also talking about open data. We're talking about big data, even though in the geo domain, I think we've been using big data for years. We're thinking about the Internet of Things, and more specifically in the city of Rotterdam, there's lots of talk about smart cities. Luckily, it's not only smart cities we're talking about anymore. We're not only talking about the city, but also about the citizen. So what I'm saying today is smart city, also smart citizen. It's about enabling people. We'll get to a little bit more of that. Some of the other nice things we're doing is the 3D city models. We're really trying to raise the standard, I suppose, for local governments to create their own 3D city models, perhaps even 4D or so. But also we are really trying to have the right basic ideas underlying our development. So we're not just looking for a nice picture. We're really looking for a standard, high quality, well thought primary information management, I suppose. Open standards is probably one of the most important of our dreams or ideas or criteria sometimes. There's another nice thing in Rotterdam. As we are a delta city, we are actually colliding, slowly sinking, and then we were already below sea level, so you would understand sinking is a serious issue. In our city, it means that for approximately every road, I would say, would be replaced, would be brought back to height every 30 years or so. And this frequency is quite high. So if you look at the engineering and construction world, the things that we do as a public service, we do them quite often, quite intense. We need to put back to height, for example, sewer systems and roads. This is a continuous job, and it also means we need a continuous supply of good geo data, which is up to date and reliable. Well, it's not really a problem to get data. There is a data, but it is a problem, I suppose, or a challenge, or actually it's fun to create information from data. This is a laser altimetry image, and I don't really think it's that special because it's just data. But then again, we've been experiencing so many colleagues and experts from other domains that are not familiar with geo information have so many new ideas and dreams just looking at an image like this. So somebody whose job is to operate roads will automatically focus on some of the objects, rails, some of the lining, crossover paths, all of these tiny expert knowledge kind of things. And he'll start to dream about a geodata that's actually complete. So it's up to date and it's complete. This is fairly new as well. A couple of years ago, this is a Dutch figure. I'm sorry about that. Well, a couple of years ago, we were in the Netherlands, we were registering our key registered. So the basic primary information, the most important information, think about houses or ownership or boundaries. Most important information is gathered in key registered. And this picture, which is quite complex, I suppose, this shows us approximately 15 data sets. And these are the, well, I think they're marked right now as the most important, certainly the most well catered for, the most well organized data sets in the Netherlands. So even if your organization is so complete and so has so much attention, is so professional, you still have complex pictures and complex relations between data sets. And then again, in Rotterdam, we don't really have 15 data sets, obviously. We have about 1,000. So we have about 1,000 2D or 3D geo data sets. And so thousands of them, maybe except for those 15, are catered for in a less professional way. They're organized a little bit less good, or maybe not so good at all. Even though we have now organized all of that data into 2D geo information systems, they're not really related, they're not really findable. We can't really share them so easily. We can't really share the knowledge we have on those data sets. Now, in order to do so and make a step forward, we are really trying to link ourselves to lots of international networks. Of course, today we're talking about ESPRESSO. There's another nice thing in the city of Rotterdam, I suppose, is that our take on operating the city has changed in these last few years, and the most important thought behind our operation process is asset management. So we are risk managing assets. The nice thing for us, if we are talking about data and information, is that there's no way you can manage the risks of assets if you don't know them. And knowing them means that there is a new need for information. A bigger information picture you would say. And there's another nice topic that we have here in public services, and there's lots of talk about making information-driven decisions. And obviously, this information should be correct. And it's not always correct. So there's lots of work on quality control as well. Correlation doesn't mean causation. I like this idea as well. So we're not only producing data and information, we're also trying to interpret them, explain them, and share the knowledge that we have about them with the other colleagues, companies, stakeholders in the city. So it's 2016, and I've seen a couple of information structures that lead us up to now. So what are our roots? There are a couple of ideas, couple of themes that are instrumental to where we are now. First one is a life cycle idea. This must be a familiar picture, I hope so, but pretty much all of my talks I mention a life cycle. There is a life cycle involved if you look at objects in the city. It doesn't necessarily have to be objects that you can touch, like a tree, or a bench, or a street, or a house, but it could also be objects that you can touch, like boundaries or zones. These objects have life cycles, and the information that is connected to these objects share the similar or the same life cycle. And this also means that when we think about geo information management in Rotterdam, we start with the idea that we have a current city which is well maintained and operated, and then we are going to perhaps make some changes to that city. Short periods of very intense construction and engineering, say you make a building in 2 years or so, or 4, are followed by very long periods of constant, perhaps low intense, but constant operation and maintenance. And if you look at the costs that we have for streets and furniture and trees and buildings, if you look at the costs, I would roughly say that the operation and maintenance part cost us a little bit more than the construction and engineering part. So maybe it's like a 40-60 balance, or maybe it's like a 50-50 balance. Second information structure I want to mention is that we have a shared vision on information management, and I suppose it sounds kind of vague sometimes, but it was so important for us in the city to have a shared vision on information management. And one of our consultants has written that vision, and I'm going to very briefly summarize it. And we basically say we need one representation of our city. Could be many files and databases, but as an information model, it should be one representation. We need the data behind this representation to be collected efficiently. Lots of chances there. We need it to meet standards as well, and we're not only talking about open standards, but certainly implementing them wherever possible. Open standards and open source as well. And we also need to recognize, I suppose, and we're quite far there. I'm quite happy about it. We need to recognize that if we gather and store and register information, if we share information, we not only do that for a primary user, but we also do this for secondary users. Could be any other party in the city, could be any other part of city services as well, could be a citizen, could be one of the companies in Rotterdam, could be also, for example, the Harbor Authority. And this is, I suppose this vision also gives us an in when new systems and new ideas are created somewhere in the city of Rotterdam. We can share our thoughts. Take a seat on the table, and also share our ideas. So a vision on information management is very crucial. Third infrastructure is a 3D city model, and we're working on it since, I think, maybe 2007. Lots of projects, and we tried really hard, and we're getting better and better. Latest news is that we hope to publish our new 3D model of the city in December. And then add some themes and data next year. And it's not just a nice picture, obviously. 3D, well, could be time-related as well sometimes. You could also think about scalability as a dimension. You can think about money, which I don't like to do, actually. but pretty much a 3D city model. And we want this city model to contain all of the semantics that are also present in the primary register. So the basic information that we have, 2D map layers, things like that, would contain lots of attributes, lots of semantics, and we want all of those semantics to also be present and contained in the 3D model. Model should be consistent, so we're not really doing the nice buildings, but what we do in the center of the city, we should be able to repeat that somewhere far away on the edges. And it should also be manageable. So we should be able to keep it up to date. Sounds simple, actually, keeping it up to date, but it's probably, I suppose, our biggest challenge. Keep our 3D city model up to date. If there are any great ideas, by the way, do let us know. This is an image that represents, I suppose, our kind of our 3D city model dream. And the data that you see on the right is also present in some of the demos in our 3D project as we're speaking now. Quite interesting to see also lots of underground infrastructures. It's quite typical for Rotterdam that we have a very extensive complete map of all of the underground cables, pipes and lines and things like that, sewage systems. They're all present in our 3D model as well. Another just a demo, I suppose, of where we were a couple of months ago with the idea right now that we want to share all this data, which is open standard city GML. We will be able to share all this data via exports as a first phase to our prospective clients. And you also see it's not only open standards that we provide, but we do want to work with all of the open standards as much as possible in our primary system. There's another nice thing about our 3D system model, city model. And the nice thing, I suppose, is that we try to stay away from a single application. What we're really trying to do is to create a basic information, a starting point for various applications and users and user groups. So all of these different types of things that you would be able to do with 3D, we want to support all of them. And that's also kind of a criteria when we develop. So we're not really developing for a single application, really trying to develop something that's useful to more than one user. There's a fourth infrastructure as well. It's captured the eye. And in the previous years, we have had lots of efforts to enhance our knowledge on BIM, also to execute projects in the city of Rotterdam using BIM, so that's building information management. Typically in the construction world, something to look at. This is the way to go, I suppose, if you look at information management in civil construction, engineering, road building, etc. We are closely involved in the Netherlands. We are one of the enthusiasts, I suppose, and trying really hard to get more and more projects in Rotterdam also using BIM, Building Information Management, which for us, the most exciting phase will be when we are able to connect the internal with the external world. So if we are able to share our information online in 3D, for example, very detailed information, if we are able to share them with our stakeholders, communication, the other parties building and working in the city, if we are not only able to technically, but also able to from an organizational point of view, if we dare to do so, then we would have gathered one of our next goals. A couple of images from BIM-related projects. Again, on the right, here's the underground infrastructure in Rotterdam. The big green circles, the big green volumes represent volumes that we are reserving for tree roots. So at those locations are trees, and we are trying to, in this case, do a clash detection between cables and lines and underground pipes with the volumes that we would actually want to reserve for trees. So there's no need really to worry, because the clash detection will get us hundreds of clashes in this image, I suppose. But this shows also the, I would say, the scarcity of space in the underground in Rotterdam. Lots of issues to deal with. So if we're trying to make our city more green, which we would like to, we also have this actual engineering challenge of all these underground pipes, cables, and lines. This is another example of clash detection and building information management in the city of Rotterdam. On the right below, there's a new bridge for bikes, actually, typical Dutch. If we build a new bridge, we would hope to have the bikes first. Crossing the road, so we use detailed information in the project itself, but on the outside, obviously, we'll use less detailed information that shows us what's going on in the public space. The fifth, I would say, infrastructure is asset management, and I talked about it a little bit before. We're actually saying we need to have the city users, not only the people that live there, but also the people that visit Rotterdam. We need to place them central. We need to base our decisions upon risks, so mitigating risks. It's not very innovation-like, but then again, using asset management this way is an innovation. And also very important, we want to make transparent choices. So we want to be able, and this is something that the public and politicians also are starting to ask from us, are starting to expect from us. We need to be able to, by hindsight, make our choices transparent. So we're looking for ways to explain the different choices that we make in the city. Those are quite hot topics, because you can imagine a city like Rotterdam being clouded, lots of cars trying to get in, lots of Dutch people complaining about all of the public works. So there's lots of interests and issues there. And then I said before, doing this means you have a bigger, different information need. Sixth, information infrastructure, or the sixth idea that brought us up to now, is the idea of common languages, which is basically something related, almost completely overlapping the idea of open standards and being able to share information. We know that a tree in the city of Rotterdam is not really necessarily very different from a tree in Brussels or a tree in Helsinki. But then again, we use information models that are so different and we cannot really relate them to each other. It's a big, big problem. And I would like to compare, I suppose, with languages. Lots of little pilots in Rotterdam these last few years to see whether we can reduce the number of languages, increase the number of relations, use open standards, also share our information models, be clear, be transparent about how you build your information. But there's still lots of big challenges to go. On the top, that's a nice one. There's the challenge, obviously. This is an image, I think, by Klaus Nagel, I'm not sure. The challenge between relating IFC, which is a standard from the building information management world, to CityGML, which is the standard that we prefer in the Netherlands for 3D city models. And you can see it's pretty much about the same type of building, but then it's completely different as well. So there's big challenges. There's a case I would like to also elaborate on a little bit. Talk a little bit about this case. This is the harbor of Rotterdam. You can imagine lots of information management there, but also we have some typical objects. Some objects that you can't really find in the middle of the city, and one of those was a quay. So the quay, pretty much the place where a ship comes to shore and rests ashore, I would say. Not really sure about my choice of words, but this is a quay, and a quay is a civil construction which is not only should be very rigid, but it is also a very, very expensive, and it's also typical because of the vertical faces when you drop to the water. So this is a typical 3D building information management approach. And in a case study that we did together with universities in Delft, in Eindhoven, companies as well, we pretty much discovered that even in our own harbor management office building, we use 7 different representations for a K from 16 different domain models. So it's, if you talk about languages, so much going on. And we decided to create, because it didn't exist, a new IFC model for Ks, which we were very happy about. And this model was shared, it's open, people are able to add to it, and we're really hoping to kind of set the standard for harbor management as well. Another quick image, don't mind the Dutch text. These are relations between the different standards in the building information management world. So we have black dots, which means there is a relation and we're using it, which is fine. So it's kind of like a solved problem. There are gray dots as well. There are relations, but we're not really using them. So whether they're really correct, we're not sure yet. We'll find out. But the interesting thing, of course, is the greens and the reds. So the green dots note that there are relations we are building on. They're not there yet, but they're being built in various networks and working groups in the Netherlands. We're quite happy about it. And then the red dots, these are things where we need or think we need a relation, but it's not there, and it's not being built, and it's not being planned either. So lots of work for the future as well, to create relationships between these different standards. Let me talk about some of the ideas we have here in the Geo Information Management Department for the near future. There it is, information supports building and managing. This will be my topic of interest for the coming years, to have a look at the life cycle of building, managing, operating, designing, and also follow information paths through that life cycle. So we are using information to support our building and our managing and our operating throughout the life cycle. So there's stuff we need to do. It's good, so we have a job. So what do we need to do? We need to place developments in a common philosophy. This is related to that common vision on geo information management, that common vision on information management. So we need to place whatever we do in that same philosophy. So I'm really trying to now currently connect about 30 projects and programs and activities together, make sure they line up parallel, make sure they don't take different directions, and they all follow this path into open standards, the sharing of data where possible. Make sure they use that path into, for example, thinking about objects and semantics, not thinking about lines and points and information that's not intelligent, I suppose, on its own, but really thinking about an object-oriented approach. And then also speak a common language. So we really also need to try to get rid of some of our peculiarities, see what we have in common with other cities in the Netherlands, in Europe, and beyond. And also make use as much as possible of common information models, so common languages. Well, and then if we didn't have enough homework yet, there's more to do. So there's a couple of things we need to stop as well. We need to stop if we are creating a system to approach it from a specific domain. So say goodbye to the domain-specific thinking. It sounds kind of crazy, but it's also very easy, because the student nowadays, if you're 18 or 20 years old, you're kind of used to doing this. Education in the Netherlands has really changed. So say goodbye to domain-specific thinking. What we also need to do is we need to try, I think, to stop with creating the one big system that does everything, because it doesn't exist. We also need to stop trying to make something very, very simplex if it is not simplex, but simply complex. So we need to allow source data simply to be many and complex. It's okay, it doesn't matter. We need to do a right information management, we need to organize ourselves professionally, but that doesn't mean that we need to get this one big database that has everything. No, we need to really allow for many, many data sets to be at different locations, different qualities. As long as we can share them, we know that they are there, we know what their quality is, we'll have the right path for us. I also see a shift, and I'm quite excited about it, from making finished projects that should go on and help you for the next 5 or 10 years. We're kind of seeing a shift to making simple tools and platforms, apps perhaps, or dashboards, things that are simple, things that are not finished, things that are not complete but easy to use, things that perhaps have a smaller lifespan if you look at it from a software point of view, but are easy to make. So we need to have more simple tools and platforms, and not big finished projects, and not big finished products. And there's the open door, I suppose. It's quite easy to say, but we need to stop fixing systems by adding systems, which is still something we do as well. There's a lot of problems that we are trying to solve on the system side, so in software, in tools, and algorithms, where I think we should be able to solve many of them on the data side. So organizing our primary data, object-oriented, rich in semantics, will also solve lots of the problems that we encounter later on when people in the different domains are working with softwares. Well, we talked about GeoBIM information before. We're not just talking about objects that you can touch. We're also talking about zones and properties. We're also talking about communication as well in building information management. So we could be able to share agreements, communications, specifications, contracts. So there's lots of different types of information. And I also think that doing this life cycle, we cannot only limit ourselves, I suppose, to geo information, but we also need to look a little bit further into the other information that's crucial when you are designing, constructing, and engineering. There's a couple of thoughts I want to share with you from an article I read, Digital Innovation for Local Government. So this is trying, I suppose, but some things I feel that we really experienced in the city of Rotterdam latest years. Digital becomes very strategic. And it becomes so strategic, I suppose, that it's everyone's job. So wherever we see initiatives to create a small data expert group, create a small data center, a small knowledge center, well, I'm not opposed to any of those ideas, but we do have to realize that everybody is working with information. So in the city of Rotterdam, we have 12,000 colleagues. I could say we have about 80 people working in our Geo Information Management department. We probably have about 20 information management experts as well. So these 100 people together, they should not be able to solve everything for everybody else. Now, actually, lots of the solutions are really in the hands of day-to-day users. So digital becomes strategic, and it's pretty much everyone's job. Innovation then is very, very difficult because risk averse. There it is. We're a local government, and even though Rotterdam, we're quite famous for trying lots of stuff. We still are a local government, and lots of my colleagues are also really trying to avoid risks, which is probably a good thing to do. But then, if you want to innovate, it will slow you down as well. And innovation is, so it's not just about new technical possibilities, but it's much more about change management that affects many, many people. And changing as an organization is simply very difficult. Well, the way to go, I suppose, is that we integrate tech with core business. So wherever possible, I would like to design and share a very, very complex technical information management ideas, semantics, object-oriented approaches, open standards. But I would also not like to make a big fuss about it and simply add simple apps and tools to the colleagues working in the domains. So all of this complex engineering, this complex information engineering, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it the right way, I suppose. But we also are going to keep it our little secret. And we actually want to make some simple, quick and fast apps. So we are really able to reach out to those 12,000 colleagues working in the domains. We've created a bit of an organization, a bit of a network organization to do so here in Rotterdam, and talked about some of the challenges that we have. We've also said, because it's a network organization, we could have our own activities, our own funding and budget. We have that, but also what we really like to do is make ourselves visitors to many of the other projects and activities that are already happening around us in the different domains in the city of Rotterdam. So we actually want to be a visitor to all of these other projects and programs that are already there, that already started because of the primary users, and we actually want to add our ideas on geo information management into those projects and programs. There's an image of some of our bridges here. If I look at the window, I can actually see this bridge. It's not finished yet. It's being renovated as we speak. This is the building information management. The nice thing about this image is that it combines very detailed geometric information of the bridge itself with not so detailed but very very insightful, I think, geo informations management. So these are the buildings on the island behind. So this gives us an idea where we are. We are using highly detailed information in projects, but we also want to present that information to a backdrop of geo information city models, a 3D city model in Rotterdam. This is my talk for now. It's been nice listening to myself. There is time, however, for discussion and questions, and I'm very, very curious to see what everybody thinks of these ideas and whether they have good feedback for us, new ideas, new opportunities. Thank you all very much for listening.
Thank you, Joris. It was a pleasure listening to you as well, so I agree with you. I have lots of questions I could ask you, but let's open up the floor for the folks that are online to ask you questions. So who wants to open it up?
Yes, agreed.
Well, François Dumortier from Belgium. I would like to know if you have something to say about information management and open data, because I suppose a lot of information is available for public services, but do you share that many information through an open data platform, for instance?
Yeah, it's a good question, actually. We have a central information department that's working on an open data platform. There is one right now for the city of Rotterdam, but we all agree that it's really not so up to date. So what we now have is a website with lots of links to specific data sets. They are not active links, they're not services, they're not always up to date, they're not complete. So this was a nice start, I suppose, in 2013 or so. It was a nice start. We showed that we want to share all of our information where possible. So there is, of course, some information that we cannot share. So think about underground cables that are high risk. So, for example, gas pipes. This is a nice example. And obviously, all of the information that is somehow privacy related. But lots of the information that we have in our public spaces, so a 3D city model, for example, most of it we'd want to share through different platforms. And we're not doing so right now. We do have that website, but we don't have the interactive platform that's actually using services. It's on the wish list, but I'm actually not sure if we will be able to realize it next year in 2017. I hope so, but I'm not sure. Does it answer your question?
It's okay, thank you. We are also developing a 3D model of the city of Brussels, but issue to know how far we will go in distributing 3D information about private buildings online, and for what purpose.
I see what you mean. That is actually not a discussion here. We have already published our previous models of the city of Rotterdam. You can simply have a look on Google Earth or so. These are our own data and our own buildings from 2010. We've actually never had that discussion here in Rotterdam. And between you and me, I would actually hope that we can avoid that discussion a little bit.
Yes, but yes, just to give you more information about the issue itself, up to now we distribute information in 3D, but just the envelope of the building. But public services do need more information about the inner part of the buildings.
Yes.
For instance, the division in housings into the building, the stairs, the common part, and so on. But this is a bit more than what you can see from the outside. So there is an overlap with the privacy-related information if you go inside the building itself. Probably necessary for public services like taxation or urban planning and so on. But maybe not. Maybe you cannot justify to distribute it as open data for everyone because it is privacy related.
Well, that's actually a nice thing as well. We are doing a research. We just started a tendering procedure, I think, to research whether we can build these the same data. So inside of the volumes, I would say, so the different spaces where people can live, for example, in a large apartment building. I think the good thing is that currently there is a registration. There's a key register in the Netherlands that contains building plans, which is currently actually open data. So we have the 2D registration with all of the building plans that were registered, and all of that is open data as we speak. But this is a 2D service. Assuming that there are no privacy issues, because this has been so for 2 or 3 years, we would also assume that in the Netherlands, if we create a 3D version of the same data, we would not have privacy issues. This is an assumption, however, because we haven't done it yet, and so we plan to, but we still have to do our own research. But this might be quite typical, actually, that we have this key register and all of the building plans, and there are simply open data already.
Those urban plans inner side of the buildings in 2D, since when are they available? I suppose you did not digitize the past.
We did not digitize the past. They are available, I think, since 2013. I'm not really sure. It could be 2014 as well. This will give you all of the digital information and also a means of asking for building plans, etc. Yeah. And all of them are digitized, for example, in the city of Rotterdam as we speak. So from 2013 or so onwards, and I think we finished 2015 last year, all of the building plans are digitized, but we are talking about a simple scan, so they're not intelligent data. They are simply PDF files, for example.
Okay, thank you for your answers.
Yeah, very good.
Okay, welcome.
Moving from the outdoor to the indoor, we have standards for that as well with indoor GML. Any other questions for Joris? If not, I might ask a question, and that is on City GML IFC, or moving from IFC to City GML or City GML to IFC. OJC currently runs a pilot on this one where we test this. Any results that you could share at this moment? Offline of this presentation, but just maybe a quick question or a quick answer to your experience with IFC GML.
I think our experience has been not so great yet. I mean, it's not negative, but it's not positive. We don't know enough yet. It's good to hear of the pilot, and what we actually do right now in our 3D city model, which is kind of like a, well, it's a solution, but it's not the desired solution, is that we simply link from simple geometric shapes in our 3D city model to very complex IFC models in a different software. So we haven't actually tried to really do so because it's so difficult. We are really looking to universities and networks to help us solve this problem as well. I will look into it next year, as I will have more time to try to connect this geo world to this BIM world. Yeah, this is such a difficult problem. Yeah, I don't expect we will solve this very fast or very easy.
Yeah. Well, we're looking into it, as said in the pilot. There will also be a session in Amsterdam, 24 and 25 in November, the GeoBIM conference.
Great.
We'll show some of those results. So yeah, it would be good to have you there as well. Good.
I will probably be there as well.
Oh, yeah, good.
Great, and good to hear.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions for Joris?
It's Carsten from Morning Survey. Good morning. Hi, Joris.
Hi, Carsten. How are you?
Yeah, great. How are you? Which is related to data that's not necessarily geospatial. So we're seeing a lot of kind of smart cities data platforms popping up in some cities around the world. And that is an approach in which kind of IT departments in its cities are creating kind of a big data platform of some sort, and sometimes there's kind of a little bit of GIS tacked onto it at the side. What is the relationship between these completely different kinds of data, which you wouldn't necessarily class as geospatial or spatial in any sense? Is there a kind of a competition in Rotterdam? Or is that quite integrated? What are your experiences and how is that set up in the city?
Well, it's not a competition, but they're not fully integrated either. Just as you said, also in the city of Rotterdam, there's quite different groups of people working on information management, not geo-related. There is a nice example here. We have a smart city planner, which is a data set or a dashboard site that's filled once a year, so it's not very frequent, but filled with lots of social data, for example. And the information management department that does this project and does all this work is centrally located. The Geo Information department we work at is not centrally, but it's close to construction and engineering and management, and it's quite far into the organization. So it's not always been easy to work together, but there are a couple of initiatives this year especially. They're quite positive. So we are now, for example, together designing a new Geo web viewer. We're also now together thinking about this vision on information management, and we're also together talking about what we call information-driven decisions. Slowly, there's a little bit of GIS going into our financial dashboards, for example, but this is still at the very beginning. Yeah, I do hope, and I expect actually, because there's so many chances in information management, so much work to do, I expect we will have better collaboration and more projects together in the coming 2 or 3 years. I'm not sure whether I answered your question, Carsten.
Yeah, that's great, thanks. Thanks, Joris.
Yeah, thanks, Carsten.
Okay, welcome.
Any other questions for Joris? Don't be shy. Okay, hearing none. I might have a question, Joris, and I was intrigued by, I think it was one of your last slides, is how you don't want to go for final solutions or ready-made solutions, but like you dabble into the app world and the apps of a faster pace. Can you talk us a bit more on how a city contracts, if you contract, how you contract that, because that seems to be difficult.
I'll have a look, see if I can find the slide you're talking about. I think it's this one, isn't it?
Yeah, this one. Yeah, exactly. So the not finished
and it's
products.
about tools and platforms. Not finished products. Well, I remember being a fairly, well, obviously I'm an engineer, I suppose. Being fairly intelligent, I suppose, as well. And if I have a look at, for example, Autodesk software, I see a couple of hundred buttons. So what I know is that the software is extremely extensive, has numerous possibilities, but can also be operated only by somebody trained to do so. What I would like to see is that if there is a trainee or somebody starting at our job, that it doesn't take him a year to train for using such extensive software, but it takes him a day or so to use apps. But then I think that's something that's happening with the different vendors as well. There's lots of software vendors nowadays, and I'm quite happy about it, that acknowledge this. And what they try to do, many of the GIS vendors do so as well. What they try to do is they create software that allows the GIS specialist to become somewhat of an intermediate user, somewhat of somebody who configures, I suppose, and that is able to make simple web services, simple web viewers, but also make use of collection apps, for example. Here in Rotterdam, we use Esri software primarily, but we are becoming somewhat of a, I would say, somewhat of a layer between the classic IT department that has the big software and the simple user that wants a quick viewer. I'm also very excited because since we have web services, we can now create simple web viewers with geodata that appear to be made specifically for a user, but are actually not. They're actually templates that we can easily use multiple times. So it's been easier to create simple viewers, simple collection apps, for example, and we do so as well. So there's lots of colleagues of mine walking around the city using their tablet or their mobile phone to quickly see the status of a tree or the status of a road, etc. Quite happy about it. So GIS information is now used by hundreds of my colleagues instead of dozens.
Yeah. Oh, good. Good. Thank you.
All right. Welcome.
And looking at the hour, we got 2 minutes before the top of the hour, so maybe room for one more question. If not, then I'll close it here. Really? No more questions for Joris? Once in a lifetime opportunity. Well, hearing no more questions, and let me give virtual applause to Joris on this one. Yay!
Thanks. Thanks everybody for listening. I really hope you get excited and enthusiastic and
Absolutely.
do lots of cool stuff in the ESPRESSO project.
Absolutely, yes. So we'll be piloting in Rotterdam. So some of the activities that we're describing right now that we'll put to the test, and so we'll be hearing more from Joris in future calls once we head into the pilots. So on this one, again, Joris, thanks so much for the presentation. Thanks everyone for dialing in. Joris, if you can send me the presentation, I can share that on the, if that's okay with you, to share that on the ESPRESSO website as well as the recording, so that actually most of the people do watch these videos afterwards, and so you're probably going to get questions from around the world on this one. So with this one, let's just close off the call. Thanks everyone, and talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Thanks.